Young men speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while. When will the lonely voice of youth cry, what is true? This our world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
All right. Welcome in, everybody. It's time to talk about video games again, which are merely effectual novelty. I will go into this. Do not worry. Now, I know a lot of people like and enjoy and appreciate and want more video games. I think the issue with video games is that in a video game, everybody playing is an NPC. The fact that there may be NPCs in the video game means nothing. But I will get into that soon enough. First, let's note I have my Sampal. Hope you have yours. I have my Muppet cup. You should buy one if you don't have one. And also consider. And that's why you buy one, so that you can properly consider. And then I have some ginger tea here. There's something else in it. I forget. Oh, ginger turmeric tea. But it's medicinal tea. It's been steeping for 15 minutes. Covered. Very fancy stuff. So let's turn to our favorite book here as pirates, our book of aphorisms. To open it up, let's see what kind of lit aphorism. I open to the section called counter narratives. I'll just read the first one. The best revenge on a liar is to convince him that you believe what he said. That is true. I wish it were more video game relevant, but then again, perhaps it is. So before we launch into my most excellent monologue, thanks to taking 3 Allegra instead of just 2. Also, you have to take Huperzine A with that. That's a little trick I invented that for some reason works, even though it shouldn't. Always take Huperzine A with your allergy meds. It'll keep you a little better than otherwise. I think it's worth reflecting on the week and how things are, in some ways getting better. We'll say, quote, politically or whatever. And in some ways getting worse. And the myth of World War II is everywhere. And I will be away from the house starting on Monday, right after my book club, kind of. My 12 Rules for Life book club. You should check that out if you haven't already. And then we're going to go to the ocean. It's going to be quite nice for about 4 days. And then we're coming back here in time to do a live stream. So don't worry. There will be a live stream next week. I don't know what the topic will be. This topic we came up with this morning. And so I've been busily taking notes on this. But I noticed there's a lot of talk about myth of World War II. Well, I have a new myth of World War II video coming out. And I have another video on maturity coming out. I'll probably release that tomorrow. It's a shorter video. It's 15 minutes or something. Pretty short. But it's got all kinds of cool banners and other things to help you understand the issue of maturity, which will, of course, play in to this video game stuff that we'll be talking about here. So do not fear. There will be more content. I am a bit behind because of all the illness here on the part of everybody. Um, so to myth of World War II too. Yes, Ixnay. So yeah, that video is kind of all over the place, I think, but that's because, yeah. And I will note I recorded it just before what Jonathan Peugeot just did came out, or at least Symbolic World. I don't know if that was Jonathan or not because I didn't really pay that close attention to it. Um, yeah, I mean, things are kind of all over the place, and I think things are going to settle for a bit, at least in the short term. But that won't last. So don't be fooled. The chaos returning to order is not happening, or at least not quite in that way. Um, I know I was talking to Ethan. He had a wonderful idea for a another animation, and if I can find a way to do that animation, that'd be cool. It's a hierarchy animation. It's freaking brilliant. He's got such a good mind for these things. So if I can find another animator who won't hate me after the job's done, then I will endeavor to get that done. Why did my camera fall down? I had all this aligned. There we go. That's much better. Sorry about that. I had no idea what happened. I fixed all this before I started. I fixed my lighting up too, quite a bit actually. The lighting's quite a bit better. So I hope you appreciate it. Um, yeah, it's, this week seems very calm, but it's not. And the video game thing is actually part of what is wrong. That's not going to go away anytime soon. And that's all wrapped up in the myth of World War II. So we're getting new replacement myths inside of video games. And that is what is holding people together. Of course, it's holding small groups together because not everybody played WoW. Not everybody played Dark Ages of Camelot, which is a much better game. Not everybody played Final Fantasy. Not everybody plays these things. And so they may know the quote lore, which is just a bad story that tries to be a myth. But they don't necessarily bind in the way that a true mythos would bind. And so that's sort of important to recognize. Also, what's important to recognize is that all the flat world and all the individualism is going to continue to, make things fly apart. So just be aware of that, not to depress you too much. Why is it that video games are pure effectual novelty? The thing is, you need novelty and you need affectation. Like, you need these things. They're not optional in the world for humans. So the real question then becomes, when do they go too far, right? And so I'm not a no, don't ever play video games kind of person. I mean, video games as a form of entertainment, one of many, can be very useful when it's time for entertainment, right? When it's time for affectation, when it's time for novelty, maybe a video game is right up your alley. I don't know. Video games can also be useful if you want to measure how sick you are. How do I know this? Because that's what I do. But you need very specific type of video game for that. And you can usually replace higher things like that with non-video versions of the video game. Some video games are just, implementations of real games that you could play with real people in person. We do have a video online web-based version of our eventual board game, for example. But that is only for testing. And once that test is done, I don't think that I will be releasing the the electronic version, because the electronic system always squishes and compresses things in a way that is annoying. And so you need that boundary to know when you've had enough entertainment. Otherwise, you can get trapped in the entertainment system. And a lot of people will justify video games by saying things like, well, everybody needs a little entertainment, or, well, the skills you get in a video game exact. And it's like, okay, well, some skills exact. So the idea of exaptation has a point, right? But that's within a person, right? And so that, to some extent doesn't necessarily count because it doesn't apply outside of a person. And so you can say skills exact all day long, but that doesn't mean you can implement that outside yourself. In other words, there's lots of skills that could exact or should exact or seem to exact. Uh, and in some people they do, and in some people they don't. And so this idea of exaptation as a universal good is incorrect because it's not universal. That's a problem. And things only exact if they work in other domains, right? Otherwise, even if they could, they didn't. And I'm a pragmatist, so I care about what happened and what didn't happen, right? Because often what didn't happen tells you more than what happened. Depends on the circumstances, obviously. So, what are some of the other dangers that we're dealing with here? Well, one is that novelty is in the realm of the imagination, it's in your fantasy realm, it's in your head, as is affectation. Affectation uh, is not designed to be permanent, right? It's in fact the thing often that is sacrificed to make sure the building holds up. Whereas the implementation of things outside of you are things which become real. And that is how you know reality. It exists independent of your existence. It doesn't rely on you. The video game relies on players like you to exist. If somebody builds the world's greatest video game and no one logs in to play it, does it exist? Parts of it do. But the fact that parts exist is about the most uninteresting thing that could be said in the world. I mean that technically, by the way. Yes, parts exist. Materiality is part of the reality in which we live. And the thing is, all affectation is painfully temporary. That's what makes it valuable. And even if it's very beautiful, it's supposed to go away. Video games worlds are like this too. They're temporary. They're supposed to go away. Whether you're looking at the instance of mahjong you're playing, and usually that's a tile match game for some reason, even though mahjong is a gambling game, um, helps to know people from the East. Or you're playing some RPG where you build a castle or conquer a territory or whatever it is. That's all supposed to go away. Much hay has been made out of video games going away. I know I had a Disney thing, forget what it is, but it was part of the PS4 console that I bought. And you buy these little characters like Tron and the Star Wars characters. Play Star Wars, whatever, which is a cool game, by the way, because you can use the Force. Like you can actually just like do this Force thing, and it works. It's so cool. This little sensor, and it sees you do the thing, and it goes aha. And so like you can do the Force. You can use the Force in the game. Like actually, it's very cool. The Disney game that they had was a Minecraft-esque mini game inside, and they shut off all the servers, and I lost all my work. And it was after like 3 years or something. I was like, "Come on, guys! I used to play this to unwind, and now it's gone." And that's okay, right? Uh, but video games are nothing but novelty and affectation. That's all they are. They have no other purpose, right? They're pure entertainment. They're not designed to last. They're not going to last. They're extremely expensive to operate at the end of the day. The only reason why they're possible is because we have the internet. We didn't have the internet, we couldn't have video games. At least not the sophisticated video games we have now. You can always have 8-bit Atari consoles. I had those. They're fantastic. Those are better games with better exacting skills. Of course, they're for children. And once you're a child, they don't serve a purpose. That's okay because they're supposed to be temporary. Therefore, with video games, pure entertainment is all that can be derived. Another word for too much entertainment, incidentally, is hedonism. And all video games are conveyed through propositions because that's all they are. They start out as a bunch of propositions and they end as a bunch of propositions. And that's all they have. And that's therefore all they can provide. They can't give you things they don't have. They only have propositions and procedures. Flat world indeed. And that, of course, is not a good thing. We don't like the flat world here. So when you take just two components and combine them, which you can do, you have flat world corruption of reality itself. You've got this affectation, you've got this novelty, you put them together, you get a video game. And there's other components for sure, but affectation and novelty driving everything. They can only prevention of their small image or affectation rather than a proper comprehension of reality. Their procedural systems are not sufficient to help you with reality. Hence, good art points up, and in doing so, opens you up to reality, whereas bad art keeps you trapped in your imagination, or worse, the imagination of the artist. I wonder where that is. Or drags you down. Art itself, as such, should relate to what is outside of it, not to what it is unto itself. Self-reference, anyone? The evils of signing artwork, anyone? Or the artist. It shouldn't point to the artist. That is a self-reference. You're referencing the person who made the painting. You're referencing itself. That's not outside the painting. Painting is inside the artist. So while video games are art, they are not the type of art that brings you out and up, but keeps you trapped inside your imaginal realm, which is ruled by your emotions. It is the ultimate determiner of immaturity by forcing you to engage purely with your emotions in an unregulated fashion. That is bad. There's nothing there to rub against you, to cause friction, to force you to be better. But it's awfully comfortable and nice and fun, if fun is indeed a thing that something should be. Being might never be fun. And the thing is, video games reference the end first. Of course, starting points matter, my friends. You start with the goal, but it's a proximal goal. It's a local goal, right? You elevate it to a purpose, which is totally stupid. You should never elevate goals to purposes. And then you proceed as if you didn't start with an end goal, but instead started at the beginning of some grand adventure that makes you into some hero going on some journey. And bang, the evil of Joseph Campbell combines with the evil of the low barrier to entry and the low barrier to entry of the medium and the low barrier of entry to the distribution of the artwork and the medium. To form a machine that follows the procedure of the hero's journey. Thank you, Joseph Campbell. All of this done because of comic books. Hmm. I bet you Campbell grew up with those. And comic books and heroes' journeys go together. They lead to this video game. Low effort, low barrier to entry art, all designed to unleash the storytelling potential within the person. And while everyone may have a story to tell, it might not be a good one, or they might be bad at telling the story. Video games may make that worse, by the way. Or it might be that the story shouldn't be told, or perhaps shouldn't be heard. Oops, that's a lot of conditionals. Combinatorial explosion, anyone? Bad art, quick turnaround to production, and cheap distribution. That enables a lot more bad stories to be told. Why is this important? Why do we care about this? In my many, many, many years of computer consulting, I would often run into situations where I'd have to explain that more releases of your software meant more bugs going to customers. People would very often stare at me as if what I had said was incomprehensible to them. And in fact, it was, because they had started from the assumption that the goal of more releases is already better. And if true, they cannot also cause more bugs because more bugs is worse. And therefore, there's conflict. So the highly paid consultant must be mistaken in some way. Self reference, starting at the end, starting in a bad place, assuming in spite of evidence, lack of logic. These are all properties that people suffer from. This is why, or part of the reason why, video games are pervasive. They allow you to engage in all of these errors. I want to play this game. Self reference. The goal of the video game is the goal, which is also the purpose. No, that's starting at the end. I have complete control over how I achieve that goal. No, you don't. You didn't design that video game. You didn't make the rules. You didn't exclude certain things. You didn't tune the physics engine. You didn't do any of those things. Indeed. That is one of the problems. It's not a problem, however, because it doesn't have a solution. It's more like a perennial pattern of life. We're imperfect people. We all suffer from this particular malady. It is unavoidable. And the thing is that video games are all about knowing the end state you want, which is purely propositional, we'll note, and pursuing it using a procedure. So you are stuck in the end result of the so-called propositional tyranny while referencing yourself and your own personal desires, but feeling as if you are doing something that is outside of you. After all, it is a video game and you are in control of when you start and stop playing. Or you can play a different game. However, you have thus again trapped yourself into your imagination with a justification of outside impact, which we ultimately mistakenly refer to as progress. The video game is not, however, outside of yourself. It is actually an engagement of outside things within your imagination, facilitated by outside stimulus. And the problem with these sorts of systems is that many people who don't have a job don't know what to do. People require structure to help them along in their life. Video games become a substitute structure. Will they help you study better? Will they help you learn better? Will they help you make progress on your projects? No, but they will do the opposite of all three of those things and more. If you order now, you also get laziness and physical atrophy. Free order today. The ultimate in being able to ignore that we require structure in order to operate. That's what a video game is. Flat world indeed, because structure is part of hierarchy. In fact, the video game operates you while giving you the illusion that you are operating it because of these small, easy, short term goals that give you a dopamine hit of accomplishment, even when nothing has changed in the outside world except the passage of time and the increase of entropy. Because that's going to happen no matter what. The question is, are you fighting entropy or are you giving in to entropy? And yes, sometimes you have to give in to entropy and watch a silly TV show, particularly after dinner, in my opinion. But how often should you do that? Should you play 4 hours of Quake World after work? Maybe I should not have done that. However, I was quite a good Quake World player, so 244 forever, baby. And the thing is, because we don't understand the structure of how humans behave and how things work in the world, still very confused about this, even though it's simple enough. This ends up, these video games in particular, playing into mimicry. We all have to mimic something. So let's suppose you don't buy my structure argument at all, even though people follow Jocko Willink or they'll follow Peterson's 12 rules for life. Sounds like some structures there. Minimal structure, to be sure. We can tell that we have to mimic something. Why else would people watch other people play a video game that they themselves could play? I've seen this many times. Twitch is what this is. And the problem is that clearly people are mimicking something. They're mimicking this flat world, making a lot of assumptions about what is happening in the flat world and especially why. Indeed. Are they right about those assumptions? Almost certainly not. A flat world doesn't have enough information to give you why. Could be that they just want to make money off of your idiocy for watching them play a stupid video game. Good for them. And the thing is, one must be careful of what one mimics. If it isn't higher than you, it is dragging you down. You can say, no, it's dragging me across the world. Yes, but entropy is still at play. If you aren't struggling higher, you're falling lower. In this flat world, we often confuse the outside of me with higher than me. So anything outside myself seems like it's higher because it's outside me, so it must be good. But that is emergence is good. And I'm here to tell you today, emergence is not good. Things emerge all the time as a result of entropy, for example. But they cannot, in fact, be good if they emerge purely from entropy by definition. And the thing is, things outside of you could be lower, it could be at the same level, they could be further away from goodness than you are. So you better be careful what you mimic. You better be real careful what you mimic. Video games aren't it. Besides, who set the story? Who told the story? Who made the world? Who determined the rules? Who told you those rules? How did they tell you those rules? Whose rules are you following and whose world are you submitted to when playing this video game? Do you know? Do you think you should? Can you even determine this? Hmm. You think that's air you're breathing? The main deception of video games in the modern error, because it is in fact an error and not an era, is that of beauty. You can see this because the wealthiest company in the world manufactures video game cards, which was, to be fair, until AI, their most profitable business and sole focus, making things look more realistic and closer to you than they really are at near real life speeds. When that became useful for AI, although perhaps it was all along, uh, they branched their product line out. But make no bones about it, NVIDIA made their money making video game cards with other utilities for sure. They charge quite a bit of money for those cards, very high margin business. For them, it's probably the highest margin tech thing that's accessible to the general public because they will pay $1,200 for a video card, which is completely insane, by the way. Um, Perhaps not as insane as paying like $1,200 for one of these damn things, but also completely insane. Video cards are much simpler than cell phones, by the way. So it's a much higher margin on the video card. Just gonna let you know. And the thing is, that's how they make their money. That's how they become a company. That's how they branch out. And they make things look more realistic and closer to you than they are. So basically, video games are full of quality depictions of beautiful things with intentionality and forethought, often also which requires real skill to implement. Therefore, a value signal for a video game is pretty strong compared to most other things that you encounter. Wow, somebody really put time into this. Somebody really thought about this. Somebody cared about this character. Indeed, they did. The trick is in the beauty. The trick is in the beauty. But it isn't good for you. It's pointed across or down. Predictability of outcome is no emotional resistance, and that leads to no emotional resilience. Unlike a video game, when you go out in nature, there's so much there that you will hit unpredictable things. It is unpredictable because it is so huge. It's so much bigger than you. And since you cannot know nature and make it predictable, you can't fit it in your head. You can fit video games in your head pretty easily. It has an element of discomfort, which video games lack because they are a flat world indeed. Being out in nature, there are so many things that you can see, that you can experience, that you can rub up against, that can open you up to your own limitation, to your own lack, to your own incapability, unskillfulness, unawareness. And that's good for you because you can't improve something you don't know is broken. Video games never teach you anything about you is broken. Of course not. And that illusion of progress is very linear. Nature is not linear. There are some semi non-linear improvements in video games, but the computational nature of them, the propositional and procedural tyrannies in which they are designed and in which they operate, means that they cannot have the level of non-linearity that nature has. It's not going to happen. They're not exaptable skills because nature isn't linear. And this fools us too, because you can cooperate together in a flat world towards a flat goal with flat tools on a flat screen using a two-dimensional display object to fantasize that it's 3 dimensions and that you are in fact moving, or cooperating with other moving objects in a 3-dimensional world. But true cooperation is not accounting for only one thing. It's not some mathematical addition of the right skills to accomplish a job designed by someone else to require a blending of skills and force you to, quote, cooperate. Does not mean that you cannot be forced to cooperate. It just means in a propositional tyranny, which is what video games certainly are, that a flat world cooperation has no overlap with a real world cooperation. Nothing could have prepared Castle or I or Sally or any number of other people for the struggle that turned into this book. No one was prepared for this. It wasn't some linear engagement that mimicked some set of skills coming together in a video game. We didn't even know what skills we had or how to put them together, but they came together nonetheless. Mysterious indeed. So mysterious, in fact, that it could not be boiled down to a video game, because the video game world is too flat. The real world is not some hybrid, some chimera. It's reality. But video games are a hybrid. They're a chimera of reality. That's what they are, technically speaking. I'm speaking technically here. You can see that. You can feel that. You can know that by talking to video game designers and listening to what parts of reality they put in their game, or what parts of their imagination they put in their game. They'll just tell you. And here you are stuck, submitted to that world, thinking that you're getting something out of it. Well, perhaps you are, just not what you think. And who else is getting what else out of it? A good question indeed. So basically, what I'm saying is video games fool you into thinking that you are cooperating, socializing, progressing, problem solving, moving, interacting, relating, even though you are not. All of the action in a video game is in your mind, it's in your head, it's in your imagination. It's part of your fantasy. Now, we need fantasy. Fantasy is good. If we can use our imagination, our imaginal realm, to understand reality better and predict reality better, that's great. You know, it doesn't do that. The flat world video game can't do that for you at all. Past a certain level, probably about 12 years old, roughly speaking. If you ever get that far. And it's all very low barrier to entry, right? In other words, again, it's for children. It's flat world engagement. And all it does is steal your fantasy world from you and replace it with a fantasy built by someone else. Is that what you signed up for? Hmm. I wonder. When you engage in video games, it is forming you to the flat world in which it exists, which does not resemble anything outside of you except for the fantasy images of the game creators. So the game creators create these fantasy images that you voluntarily engage in, you fool. And then you're engaging with something outside yourself, but it's really just somebody else's flat world version of their fantasy. You're still engaging in the fantasy realm. You're not engaging in the real world at all. You've just traded it for a digital projection of somebody else's poorly implemented fantasy. That's the best you're going to get. It's a computer, it's got limitations. And when you engage in these video games, you're getting these flat procedures. You're under the submission of the people and their vision for how a set of flat procedures should result in a propositional goal that they told you about that you agreed to go towards. You agreed to it. You found it appealing. It's a novel goal. Indeed, it is. And it's pretty. There's lots of beautiful affectation in this game. I actually prefer 8-bit looking games. Just enough graphics to keep me interested, not enough to keep me sucked into a fantasy world. Thank you very much. Not that I haven't played my fair share of WoW, but also I never made level 50. That's for sure. And the thing is, it's very easy to fool people with these types of procedures. They're very shiny. The art is very shiny. It's very attractive. We're not very sophisticated and discerning when it comes to art. That's why discerning art was the job of the noble class, because they had time to learn how to do such things. Ever go to wine tasting? Indeed. Wine tasting, like many things for most people, but not all, but almost all, because Pareto principle. Wine tasting is one of those things that most people, but not all, Pareto principle, can learn to do. But indeed, why would anybody learn such a thing? Well, it turns out if you ain't got nothing to do all day and you want to keep people busy with something that's, we'll say, useful because it is a useful measure of the skills of discernment of another person. Yeah. So diplomacy back in the day was a lot about asking people questions about which they claimed to have some knowledge and discerning how willing, ready, and able they were to lie to you. You would use things like, not necessarily this, wine tasting to determine that for negotiating with somebody. So you knew exactly, oh, how far are they willing to push a lie? How good are they at lying? Are they using the skills of convincing or are they using the skill of actually being correct? And in what measure? It's a very complicated thing. I might do a video on that someday. And of course, not everybody can do that. But if you're in the noble class, you're trained to do things like that, which is useful. Useless if you're running a store. Useless. You don't have time. You're not in the same sort of engagement. Trade's contractual. It's very straightforward. You give me money, I give you stuff. Right? You need to know if someone's a liar. Very flat world. You don't need it when you're farming. The plants may be lying to you, but how would you know? And if you're talking to them and they're talking back, that is a different problem we'll cover in a different video. As for the arguments of, but I met friends, or I learned to cooperate, or, I made all these new connections, or I talked to people about all these subjects I never would have talked about otherwise. Sure. But actually, you can do that other ways, and you can do that anywhere. And those things are universal. And we get that backwards because we came from, typically, not everybody, I didn't come at video games this way at all, a world where we were introverted. We weren't engaging with other people. And suddenly, there are other people we want to engage with. This is very exciting, but it's universal. You go outside, you do anything at all with anyone or without anyone. You just go outside and stare at the sky, and people will show up and stare at the sky with you. This is a well-known a psychological experiment. It's been replicated hundreds of times. You can replicate it yourself. Uh, Cooperation and meeting friends. I'm not impressed. You can do that by leaving your house by accident. This is not a plus in the video game column, I'm afraid. Would that it would be so. Now, as somebody who grew up and learned all of his social skills online, I can tell you that that is a thing. I did not do so in video games, however, because that would be stupid. Don't be stupid. Now, what must we do about these horrific video games, except when we just use them as entertainment for short periods of time, say a few times a month, perhaps? Well, excuse me, what must be done is we must unplug. We must use the world to form us instead of somebody else's flat world. We need to stop using this word education, which we are badly butchering, and start talking about formation. We have to understand what forms us. We have to understand mimicry and what we're mimicking and how mimicking something forms us. We have to stop talking about exaptation and proving its utility in the moment. Because if it don't work, it don't work. And the fact that it did work once for one person is really not interesting to me. I already knew that. That was a statistical certainty. Thank you very much for the update, Captain Obvious. We have to get outside to struggle with reality. Partial definition, that which objects to our subjective experience. True objectivity objects to us in some way. And the reason why we have to get out and struggle with reality is because, by definition, in fact, that is what we are truly embedded within. You want to be as close to the thing that you are embedded within as possible. Video games separate you from those things. They create individual worlds that separate you from other worlds. You can play this video game or these other video games, but only one of them. And when you're doing that, you can't also involve yourself in this other one because we have limited time, energy, and attention. And that's the problem of the video game. We have limits. We are constrained. We don't have the ability to do all of the things all of the time. So which things are you doing when? That is the question. You have to have a sense for that after all. The idea that the thing we're most closely embedded within is our own fantasy or somebody else's fantasy is a type of insanity. That is what it is, technically speaking. Go outside, grow a bean, learn to sail, go running until you drop, learn to cook, learn to fix something like cars. Fixing cars is great. Build something with wood and hand tools. Don't think. Do. Find a thing. Do the thing. Find more things. Do them too. Increase the complexity and the struggle in your environment. Meet it with the faith that you can learn it, that you will learn something from it, even if you don't learn it. And that doing this makes you more than you were before. It makes you better. It improves you. Video games atrophy you, they make you smaller. In fact, the only way to be bigger than yourself is to struggle to expand, to grow through the container of your imagination into something beyond where you are now. When you try to contain yourself inside your imagination, or indeed anyone else's, the world is different but smaller, full of emotions and bereft of a cohesive worldview that encompasses everything, replacing it with a bunch of worlds that encompass nothing because they are imaginal or fantastic. They don't exist. The real world exists. Spend your time, energy, and attention on struggling in the real world where you are, rather than your time, energy, and attention, same time, energy, and attention. It's limited. You're a constrained, limited person on things that will waste away and waste you away to nothing. Go outside into nature and learn to deal with the multi-aspectual, imperfect, and messy outside that doesn't care about or for you at all. Interact with those things which you must tame, must improve, must toil over, must cultivate through work in order to yield something positive. Those things that you need to truly live are not found in growing or raising or building, but in doing the things that yield that which you need to persist, strong enough to handle the great and terrible beauty of the world, which you can only experience but never put into propositions. The child stuck in the video game cannot learn about the outside world because your time, energy, and attention is limited. And you are spending it inside the visions of some group of people you have never met and likely will never meet. That takes all the time, energy, and attention away from you learning about the real world. We are limited creatures after all. So it's not that you don't learn, it's that you don't learn complex things or important things or lasting things, just some novel affectation from the imagination of someone else. And that, my friends, is that. I hope you enjoyed my little rant that I wrote today. Thank you to Sally Joe, who wrote part of it. And I just stole her words wholesale because she can actually say words now. It's amazing. 5 years ago, Sally Joe could not say words. Now, Sally Joe can say words, and they're good enough to use in a monologue. Sally Joe insists best way to kick off winning the internet. Indeed. Welcome to the party. Yes, welcome Vantike. Myth of World War II Part 2. Yes. Yes, Ixnon. They don't bind as they point to a cult rather than a religion. Yes, Ixnon. Cults are self-referential. That's the understanding circularity, as Taleb calls it, or self-reference. What a heuristic. I mean, it just finds all kinds of bad things. It finds parasites. It finds what differentiates between parasites and symbiotic relationships, right? You can always put parasites under symbiotic relationship, but that is an error. It helps you find self-reference as such, which all self-reference is bad. You know, the really real. The really, really real, no, I mean it this time real, as opposed to the real, which has the same definition because you just used the word real a bunch of times in different English forms. But you really didn't say anything if you said the really real. You haven't said anything at all, actually, right? How do I know? Self-reference. Once you understand circularity, it's amazing. It's a superpower. And Sally Joe, it allows you to engage the beauty without the true cost of either its creation or the humility of it being graced by your betters or more powerful than you, or its vanishment. Although it will vanish, like I pointed out. It also, fleeting. The only kind of beauty is fleeting. These flowers aren't as pretty if they're here 24/7. I think the 4 o'clocks, which are actually 8 o'clocks because they don't come out till 8. They're so beautiful because you go there during the day and they're not freaking there. They don't exist. And then they exist at night, just before the sun goes down. And you can catch them in the morning and then they go away again. And it's like, yeah, but the plant's ugly without them. Well, not ugly, but like it's just a green plant. Who cares? It being the video game play. Yes, indeed. Discipline equals freedom. That's Jocko Willink. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, freedom, the word freedom without a context cannot be made sense of. It cannot be comprehended. The reason why we're having a crisis of comprehension partially is because we're not paying attention to framing. And so we're just throwing out words as if words have meaning, and words do not have meaning. I have a video on that, by the way. Words don't contain meaning. Meaning is the result of content, and words are content, by the way. They have definitions, so one word could stand in for any number of contents, usually 4. Most words in English have 4 definitions, potential definitions, plus context. Context, that's the thing outside of the word, right? And so that's how words have meaning. Meaning is content plus context. It's not that hard. Vant K is going to talk to Sally. Who cares? Sally Joe, beauty takes cost, destruction, or divine grace. Powers outside yourself probably should. Yep. What's a beauty that requires both? They probably should was the autocorrect adding junk onto that. Yeah. A cathedral, a clean city. Yes, it does make sense, doesn't it, Vanticade? Sally knows what she's talking about. She's a real artist, a genuine artiste. Sally Joe, also classically beautiful woman requires more than genetic grace to be what she could be. Yep. Yep, it's not regular big. She walked with a grace, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you walk with grace. Yeah, it's not a property of your being, of your materiality, right? It's a quality that you convey through your movement. Oh, movements convey quality. Indeed. Indeed, they do. Right. Without society having wealth and without either family or social help, beauty is diminished. Right. By poverty, same as a cathedral. Beware of glossy things with big eyes. They are just trying to take the place of children. Indeed. Indeed. Vanticate, wow, video games seem a lot less cool now. Good. Good. They aren't very cool. Oh, Benjamin Franklin. Let me steel myself against whatever may come next. Can you explain the difference between heroism and Peterson's assertion about pursuing and conquering the dragon? Sure, Peterson's wrong. There you go. Look, heroes are divine or divinely installed characters. Okay. Mythos, myth, and mythos originally referred to supernatural or extra natural or divine stories. There were stories about things that were extra natural or supernatural. Supernatural, by the way, is the correct technical term. I don't know why people don't like the term. It's like, well, I don't know what to tell you about how words work, but it's actually proper use. And your insistence that you don't like it means you're an idiot. It doesn't mean anything else. So don't listen to those people. They're dangerous to themselves and others. I don't think Peterson makes an insistence on conquering the dragon. I think he says this is something that you should do. And then he puts the dragon in a psychological frame because he's a psychologist, big hint. However, the fact that you should face those things which you need to face doesn't need to be put in terms of a dragon. The other way to think about the dragon is entropy, right? And that's the thing. Like everything grows in its badness if it is not striving to the good or being cultivated towards the good by somebody striving for the good. Right. And so all things that are part of entropy, which happens to be the set of all things, weird overlap, I know, um, are dragons. This is not helpful, right? Now, framing it as a dragon the way Peterson does can be helpful if that's what you need. I agree. Sally Joe, if you know it's a dragon before you go, it's not exactly a dragon. Also true. You'll notice that Peterson does, in fact, skirt this line between, oh, well, a dragon represents all of the horrors, and then says, but the dragon is the thing you can slay. Well, is it a symbolic representation of all of the horrors, Dr. Peterson? Or, in fact, is it an object or a goal that can be vanquished? I don't know. I think he's read too much Campbell and took Campbell seriously without noticing that Campbell's an idiot. Because Campbell's an idiot. Like, Campbell's just dumb. I don't know what to tell you. These people who manage to write books, and then people go, ooh, he wrote a book. It's like, well, whatever. I mean, is it a good book? Like, I don't get it. Lots of people write books, and they suck. Sally Joe, in real life, you have to go without knowing. Exactly. You go to vanquish the monster, and you don't know what the monster is. And if you don't believe me, you can use the Peterson test, which I have done. It's weird. He has all the pieces. He doesn't put some of them together correctly. You can go up to a dark room and put your hand in it and imagine what's there. Yeah, well, that works. It doesn't really matter what age you are, by the way. Vantike, if there's such a thing as a useful video game, what's the most useful kind? Maybe some kind of story-focused game? No, do not play video games. Except as entertainment, and limit your entertainment. Seriously. And don't do only one type of entertainment. I'll watch some TV too. Right? The best types of video games are 8-bit video games on the Atari 2600. Obviously, everybody knows this already. This is a fact of the world that has already existed since the beginning of time itself. So clearly it must be true. That is because there are skills and limitations in those games. For example, the 8-bit video games tend to flip, you get to the end, and then you just start over. Like, that's it. Like, it has a cyclicality that tells you, like, you've gone as far as you can. Right? Now, when I was younger, I had a very hard time learning to type. When I did learn to type, I could type 180 words a minute, but it took me 5 years to learn to type. So there was a program that was a game called Gore-Tex and the Microchips. It's a fantastic game to learn to type. And games like that can allow you to experience things that are helpful in your learning and development, right? So it's worth considering what those games are. There was a game from the Learning Company. I can remember the packaging, but I can't quite recall the name. But it was all about circuit design. It was a great game, right? But the problem becomes you're still stuck in someone else's fantasy world. Like, that's what's happening to you. So you have to take that seriously. Instead of engaging in video games, learn to sail, learn to fix cars, go out and build some woodworking project with hand tools. Like, that's how you learn. You learn by doing. Video games are not really doing. It doesn't mean they have nothing to offer, but most of it's entertainment. It's hard to discern what's not. And why do you want to go through that when there's a surefire way to learn something every day? It's called go outside. And that's the problem, is that that's hard for people, but that's also the skill you need the most. If you don't have that skill, you're going to run into a problem eventually, and it's not going to be a good problem for you. But it will be a problem. So don't run into that problem. If you would like to jump in and object to my unassailable point, you may do so. I will let you do that. Feel free to engage. Can I pin this over here? No, I cannot. Okay. Well, I can't pin it on Rumble. That's a bummer. So yeah, I mean, look, why are we trying to redeem video games when we don't need to? Because we don't need them, and they come with hidden dangers, or maybe not so hidden dangers, but dangers that we weren't aware of up front. And the problem with learning about something like space is that you're not going to space. So who cares? And to the extent you are going to space, you're going in someone else's fantasy, like Elon Musk's rocket to Mars. It's not yours. You didn't design it. Why are you engaging in other people's fantasies when you could be making your own purpose come to fulfillment in the world in a way that everyone else can appreciate and enjoy and engage in for ages to come? Hmm? Sally Joe, saleable points are for pirates. Why are we learning for the sake of learning? Like, why is that a value? We live in the age of gnosis indeed, where the highest value is knowledge as expressed as propositions, it seems. However, I am here to tell you that is not the case. Knowledge as propositions has no value. Um, True, would be useful. Yeah, would be if you could hide by SpaceX, no, but it actually wouldn't. But that's very unlikely. Okay, it wouldn't be useful. See, the problem is if I program a physics engine into a game that acts exactly like something in space, no one needs to hire you. They can use my physics engine. See the flaw in the reasoning? In order to develop original thought, you can't mimic somebody else's flat world. The thing that made that world is already available, cheap and easy to everyone. If you want to learn skills that are unique in the world, or at least rare in the world, you can't do so with an industrial produced thing. Anything produced on a computer is industrial produced because computers are produced by industry. If you want to learn unique skills, and maybe there's one or two unique games, although I didn't like Witness, a terrible game, and I didn't get anything out of it really. I know some people did, but no. Go out into the world and learn to deal with the unexpected, because people who can deal with the unexpected, huh? Technically speaking, if you think about it for a second, and I know that none of you did, and that's fine. That's why we're all here. Fair enough. If you engage in any video games, you become an NPC of that video game. If you engage with anything that has been done before by someone else and curated by them for you, you are an NPC. You are submitted and subjected to their world. You are agreeing to that, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but you need to know that's what's happening. If you want skills that are not NPC skills, you have to go outside where there aren't any NPCs, because they would die immediately. And you need to learn to survive out there. When you do that, you will have a unique set of rare skills that cannot be easily duplicated by other people. that sets you apart and makes you unique in some way. The more unique a person you become, the more valuable you become to other persons, especially if you combine whatever set of interactions you have with a set of interactions that teaches you, oh, I don't know, how to cooperate with others. Maybe to manifest something that will soon be for sale sometime in early September that has artwork all over the place and lots of words. And wait, my friends, until you see the companion book for this, the workbook, you will be most impressed. I know I am. A little overwhelmed, in fact. But that's what happens when you have a bunch of unique persons bring their unique skills to a common goal outside of themselves that requires them to cooperate. Those are the skills that you need. Sally Joe, that's the trick. Do games things without suffering on screen. Lose tolerance for suffering in life. Exactly, Sally. Hot house flowers everywhere, withering at the slightest sun. Indeed. Well, that is the problem. I mean, video games keep you protected. And the thing is that if you're protected by your silly little video games, um, you're growing weaker by the second. By the second. Physically, mentally, emotionally, right? You're losing control of yourself because you're giving it all up to the video game and you're just following the rules. You have to control yourself when you're following the rules. You can just follow the damn rules. But that weakens you as a person. It destroys your uniqueness. It NPCizes you, turns you into what everybody else who's engaged in that video game is also being turned into. Is that what you want? Or would you rather use it as occasional entertainment to make yourself feel better when needed, not whenever? We've lost the sense of when needed versus whenever because everything's available all the freaking time. Cyclicality is gone from the world we flattened time to whenever the hell we want. I can have an ice cream anytime. I don't need to wait for the guy to bring the ice cream to me. I don't need to wait for somebody to make the ice cream. I just go to my freezer and get it. It's actually not particularly good for me or, incidentally, for you. If you would like to hop in, the link should be pinned on navigating patterns. I need to take care of something real quick before I burn up. Pardonnez-moi. About that, but there was a small emergency had to be tended to. Mutiny time. We'll have none of that, sir. What is this mutiny of which you speak? Shall be no mutineers. They shall be hung from the yardarms, I say. Sally Joe, video games are only available the 2 darkest months, and ice cream available the 2 hottest. We would benefit. Yes, indeed. What do you mean, mutiny? No, Sally. No, mutiny is bad by definition. What lunacy is this? I have a mutiny on my hands. Yeah, I think one of the advantages, we'll say, of structure is that it gives us that sense of value through scarcity because things aren't available all the time. And that's actually super important that things aren't available all the freaking time to us because we just can't handle constant availability. It's not good for us. I mean, Polly here, she's just struggling with constant availability, but she's got my attention now, or at least I have hers, which is appropriate since I'm the captain and she is the parrot. I think one of the fundamental problems with video games in particular is that it is cheap and easy access into our imagination, but it seems external to us because how do I want to say this? Because in order to engage in that imaginal experience, you have to do things outside of yourself, right? And then again, you're engaged with all this work that people you never met and never will meet put into something, right? But that work is ultimately not yours. You did not struggle or suffer for it, to your earlier point, Sally. But also, that work is far away from you. And because it's far away from you and you are submitting to it, you are voluntarily separating yourself from the world. Now, entertainment separates you from the world, and sometimes you need to separate from the world or it will overwhelm you. But you need to be careful when you're doing that, how you're doing that, why you're doing that, and how long you're doing that for. Those are the types of discernment that you need in the world, right? And the fact that they mimic some of the, we'll say, material impacts that an external uh, engagement would have, it just means that they're a psyop. It doesn't really mean anything else, right? So, Benjamin Franklin, can't you saying complain about films? No, because it's not as immersive. You are submitting to the will of the writer to a certain extent. Yeah, it's true of books too. Uh, Sure, don't watch too many movies, don't read too many books. I agree, burn all the books. There's way too many books. Don't watch too many movies too. Otherwise, you'll be Jesse, and the world can only handle one Jesse. So I hope Jesse is well. He should be on his honeymoon. I hope he's still on his honeymoon anyway. All these people getting married. It's terrible. They should be giving their lives to the pirate adventure. Instead, they're off in being land. Sally Joe M. Cooper. Too much media is a problem too. Yeah, too much of anything is a problem. The question is how much and what kind of things. Right. I mean, you can say that movies aren't bad for you, and I can say, what about porn movies? Oh, those are definitely worse for you than regular movies. Oh, really? So there's a difference that matters. I'm shocked, utterly shocked, I say. I think that's kind of the point of nearly every video on my channel in some way. Vanticate, can books be a better? They can. I say burn all the books except mine. Well, no, buy my book, burn it, and then buy another copy and keep doing that for a while because I really need the money. They can be a better form of entertainment, but they can also be a worse form of entertainment, right? Also, books are extremely dangerous. Like, if you read Plato's Republic and you thought the point of Plato's Republic was to introduce you to the philosopher king, I've got news for you, buddy. There's no philosopher king in Plato's Republic. That is a fantasy that someone who read the book inserted into Plato. Plato didn't write about that at all, not in the Republic. I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's not better. Is that better? That's not better. And it's not entertainment. And it's not supposed to be entertainment. Sally Joe, but hopefully movies are not tricking you into thinking you're experienced at what you're watching. Yeah, and some do, and some try to. And like movies with a twist, right? They bring you out this feeling like you've really understood something or done something or whatever, because you got that dopamine hit. So you must have done something because you only get dopamine hits when you do something. Right. Because you grew up that way. Right. That's the trick in these movies. That's why I don't like M. Night Shyamalan films. Although 3 or 4 of them are quite good, but most of his are terrible. Benjamin Franklin, reality is pretty boring and banal. Well, it can be. It depends on how you approach it, especially if you're living for a long time. Yeah, it can be, but that's up to you. Like, it doesn't have to be. There may be some value in escapism and fantasy. I didn't say there was no value in it. Why are you strawmanning my argument? Like, I don't understand. Are you stupid? Like, I don't get it. Sally Joe, getting bit by ants outside is a better experience than a book experience. Well, that's certainly true. Sally Joe, for your moral fortitude anyway, indeed. Ixnod, burn all the books after reading. If you need to read it again, rebuy it and then burn it again. There you go, Ixnod. I like it. Don't burn my workbook, though. That's not a normal book. It's more of a fill in the blanks book. We'll get that soon. Sally Joe, not just ours. We can fund the others. There you go. Lol, okay. Yeah, look, I mean, you need entertainment. One form of entertainment is video games. Sometimes I play video games, right? Okay, we've already afforded all these crazy arguments that don't make any sense. I already afforded all of those. They're also still wrong, by the way, because the point is it's very dangerous and you have to discern. You have to go eat dinner? Well, then go eat dinner, my friend. But return if you will. And I'm still on, although who knows how long I'll last. We'll see if the not Allegra is as good as the Allegra at keeping me upright and able to continue. Go enjoy your dinner, however, because that is important. I have to eat early on Fridays so that I can do these streams for you. So that is what I do. That's how it works. That's how it has always worked since the dawn of time, in fact. Unfortunately, I can work right up until 5 minutes before the stream because I don't have to make the dinner. I only have to eat the dinner now. Wonderful, wonderful upgrade. That engagement with writing all this down, going over it, asking Sally to repeat herself because I wasn't really prepared to take notes, uh, is much more rich than a video game experience. Now, that doesn't mean I won't go play World of Tanks at some point in the next week, because I might. Although it had been a year since I played it previously. Like, I hadn't turned on the PS4 at all for well over a year and a half. Right? Because I was never a big video gamer. But we did go to Micro Center the other day because we were up in Charlotte. They have a beautiful brand new Micro Center that's like a year and a half or 2 years old or something. And they had like gaming chair with steering wheel and pedals and the whole 9 yards. And I was like, ooh. So I might go into the shed at some point and grab my PS2 because I have two, count them, two driving wheels for that, which I've used on a number of occasions because I do like my driving games. And I'm decent at driving games. I don't suck at them. I suck at most other games, but not driving games. I don't suck at Quick World. I'm a world class Quick World player. If they had had contests in Quick World, I could have gone to the contest. We would have won. No question about it. I had teams that I was really good with too. But even as individual contributor in Quick World, especially 244, I was a complete beast. Complete beast. I was so good. Yeah, those are the days. Those are the days. But I was young and foolish, and now I'm old and foolish. So that's completely different. Know the difference between young and foolish and old and foolish. It's important. It is important. Have you considered? You should. And if you haven't, you should get a mug to remind you. Are all the video game defenders gone? I'm surprised CC Mool isn't here. I figured for sure she would show up and she was gonna like debate me on video games. I was like, really? I don't know how you can expect to win an unwinnable argument, but I enjoy a challenge. So, and then no CC. Very disappointing. I may cry later. I may, in fact, cry later. Uh-oh. I'm still no chill for the digital. I see, CC. Well, I'm glad you are here at least. Benjamin Franklin, what did you think about the ending of Severance Season 2? I thought the ending of Severance Season 2 was crappy video game writing. Um, which is terrible and too bad that they ruined that show too, although I suppose I should have expected. What they did in the crib represent is, look, they are so off the rails with their symbolism, and they're doing Mystery Box. This is just smells like Lost to me all over again. And so I don't think I'll be engaging in season 3 of Severance. We actually signed up for Apple to watch Severance season 2. And it was an interesting situation. So we bought this awesome TV, and it is an awesome TV. Like, new TVs are awesome on the mid-range, even. Like the mid-range new TV, like 75-inch TCL TV that we got, unbelievable. Comes with free streaming from Google, comes with free streaming from TCL, comes with free live programming and free um streaming, like DVR style streaming. It's amazing. And then there's Tubi, which is free, and there's Freevee, although they're closing Freevee down. And if you have Amazon Prime, which I do, there's Amazon Prime, and then Pluto. Pluto is free, and then I have Plex. Plex has a bunch of free stuff on it, right? So you get all this stuff, and they gave us, even though it's not a super expensive TV, they gave us a 3-month trial or whatever the heck it was to Apple TV. And I knew Severance season 2 was coming. So what we did was we waited until the last possible minute to sign up, and then waited like a month for Severance 2 to start. And then I think we had to extend and buy 1 month of Apple TV to finish Severance season 2. But it just turns out they're running garbage, which is too bad, because actually I rather enjoyed The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and I thought maybe it would be more along those lines, and it just isn't. And that is a disappointment. It feels a lot like The Boys did this. It went off the rails. What was the big one before? There were 2 other ones that did the same thing. They got all the buzz. They did 1 season and they went away. What was the one with Chloe Grace Moretz? Why can't I remember that? Usually if Chloe Grace Moretz is in something, I can remember the name of it. But that was good. That was a William Gibson novel based story, but they canceled that. That might have gone someplace interesting, because Gibson's a pretty good writer. But yeah, I mean, these shows that are following the Lost pattern, where they just throw a bunch of mysteries in and then try to tie them together in the middle of the show, they're no good. You watch something like Babylon 5, which would have been perfect had they not like canceled the show on them in season 4 and then resurrected it for a 5th season when they sold the network, which is just like absolute catastrophe to the storytelling. Absolute catastrophe. Crusade, which is a half a season, would have been excellent if they could have done a full season. Crusade's awesome. I love Crusade. But Babylon 5 is so good. First 3 seasons in particular are so good. So good. They're indescribably good, because he had a story arc laid out. And so it was really easy. And you get some good stories in season 4. You get a few good stories in season 5. We're not done season 5. We're going to finish season 5, and then we're going to go on to Crusade, I think. But then you watch an encapsulated mystery show like Danger Man, also known as Secret Agent Man, which is in black and white, but doesn't use any fancy tech, and I find those quite engaging. I mean, I've always liked them. I was like, The Prisoners. Until Breaking Bad, The Prisoner was considered the greatest TV show of all time. If you haven't seen The Prisoner, and you can be forgiven if you don't like it, The Prisoner is awesome. The Prisoner is great. Patrick McGowan really knew what he was doing, but he came to that through Danger Man. And I had never watched Danger Man. It was one of the things I did not grow up with somehow. So I am watching Danger Man now. Very slowly. We don't even watch an episode a day or anything crazy, but apparently there's an episode in there that sets the stage for The Prisoner. And I just love The Prisoner so much. I've seen it millions of times. That I wanted to watch Danger Man. No relationship to Danger Mouse, which I also have on DVD and have watched most of. But I'll watch that too. But like if we do TV once a day, that's a miracle, right? Like, so if you like sci-fi, you may like Foundation. No, it's told out of order. It's a book by Isaac Asimov, a series of books. Yeah, season 3 is going on right now. It's told out of order. I hate things that are told out of order. Listen. I'll just give you a quick heuristic. If you have to tell your story out of order, you're not a good storyteller, and that's why. Or it's not a good story. Period. End of statement. There's no other reason to tell a story out of order. There just isn't. It doesn't mean no flashbacks, right? But also, like, if most of your story is told out of order, or half your story is told out of order, or more than 4 scenes ever are told out of order, that's because you're a terrible writer. And there's no other possible reason to do that ever. I'm sorry. There just isn't. And then once that happens, then you can recognize something like this, the City at the Edge of Time or whatever, as a good storytelling device, right? Because otherwise it's not. It's just another, you know, and that's the problem with that nonsense. Maybe Asimov's books are good. I'm told they are. I'm probably never going to read them. I don't like Asimov. He doesn't write particularly well. Asimov has a lot of good ideas. So I think one of these days I'll do a video on that. It pains me as somebody who can write really well. Everybody in my family can write really well for whatever reason. But it actually pains me to even think about this, because they have destroyed writing and storytelling entirely. They've replaced it with this thing called narrative and hero's journey, and neither of those are real. And that just bugs me, right? Like, they're affectations, actually. Anyway, so a lot of people confuse good and interesting ideas with good storytelling. Those are separate things. A lot of people confuse coherent, fun, interesting stories with good writing. And those are different things, right? A lot of people confuse engaging novelty or beauty, right, usually through description, with good writing or good storytelling, and they're not. Fanticade, what about board games? Well, I didn't mention board games. Games like the Wisdom games seem like good tools for formation. Well, hopefully, if we get it done, it will be. If we prefer any kind, would it be a game like that? All right. Well, here, Fanticade. I don't mean to be dismissive, but I designed the game deliberately to be the sort of game that was technically superior for the sorts of things that I talk about on my channel. That is the purpose, or telos, or aim of the Wisdom game. Now, I will just tell you, through some sort of miracle, and I mean that technically, we'll say, that game design is well beyond any possible expectations I could have had. Part of that, ironically and interestingly at the same time, is due to my use of AI. Now, you have to understand, I have like 20 years experience with AI. So, very important. I don't know, CC Mole. So, isn't Estuary a game? Well, clearly it's not. It doesn't even have a goal, so it can't be a game. But let's engage with what it is. What is the description of Estuary? Oh, we all get around in a circle and make a proposal and see what emerges. Okay. Do you know what else has that description? A seance. Okay. That's it. That's all I have to say about that. Okay. I'm sorry. I really like Paul. I'm not a fan of John Van Donk for very many reasons, and there's a history there. And so, unless you want to actually know bad things about people that you like, you shouldn't ask me about that, because I will tell you. I will tell you bad things about all the people in this little circle that want to get in a little circle and call it a corner when it's not, and then make corners of corners of corners of corners, constantly making little cults. Now, to be fair to Pastor Paul, who is still my friend, he knows he's making little cults. He joked about it on Twitter the other day with me. We find this very funny. It's also true, and I'm not a particular fan of cults. However, I cannot prevent people from doing what they're doing, mainly because they don't want to lead. I have the same critique of Vanderklay and Jonathan Peugeot and John Vervaeke. They don't want to lead, mainly because they're leftists and they're leftist. No, mainly because it points outside itself, young. It's really easy to tell a cult from a non-cult. Where does it point? Is it self-referencing or not? This is not that hard. It takes 2 seconds, right? But you have to actually know that, and you can't be flip and arrogant about it. Otherwise, you'll never learn anything, which is fine by me. I don't, I'm not responsible for your salvation. And quite honestly, I don't care. I'm sorry. That's just my caring is limited to the people who do artwork for my book, right? Or do artwork for my channel, like this great little thing here, which is combination artwork, Sally Joe and Sarah, which is fantastic. That's what the world needs, though, right? The world needs you. Be better. Isn't that hard? Be better. The world needs you. The world doesn't get better unless you get better. Or this gem here, which, is in the corner too. Right? Or my buddy, my friend, Sally Joe made me a friend, my only pal in life, Ed Gregor. You want to know about Ed Gregor? Here he is. He's right there on your screen right now. That's Ed Gregor. Right? It's the perfect visual representation. Or this, which, if you'll notice, to your, is that the right? Yeah, to your right. No, to your left. I don't know. You can buy on Canvas on my store, right? This is the proper relationship and how men and women actually interact. Like these things are all like available as part of the community. Like we have a whole series of shots from a camera sitting on Earth of various parts of space. Just for us. We used it in the Language Creation Book Club, by the way. Manuel put up one of those backgrounds. It was a beautiful background. So that's the thing. We have all this stuff. And it points up and out, right? And that's the thing. Oh, cults don't want you out. They're not interested. They want to take things away from you, right? They want to suck you in. They want to reference themselves. Self-reference, surefire sign of a cult. It's not the only sign of a cult. Maybe it's not the easiest sign of a cult either, although maybe it is. Sort of depends on your skills too. Right? So whip it on me, of course. Well, that's the thing. The thing is that when you get used to reducing the world because you're used to video games, you can just go, oh, everything's a cult. Well, but everything can't be a cult. Otherwise, there'd be no reason for the word, right? It'd be the water you swam in, and therefore you wouldn't need a word for it because you couldn't have a word for it because you couldn't differentiate it from other things. Right. I mean, this is always the problem we run into. Well, why are people running into that problem? Well, that makes them NPCs. No, it makes them flat worlders who are part of a flat world. And they're trying to understand the whole world, which in a video game, you can understand the whole world. That's not that hard in a video game. It's not supposed to be that hard. After all, it was only designed by a handful of people, right? But the real world, you can't do that with. And the attraction of a cult, and cults are really attractive to fundamentalists because fundamentalists suffer this problem. Yes, I'm looking at you, Protestant Reformation. Cults are attractive to fundamentalists. That's why you will hear the term fundamentalist cult used quite often. Because fundamentalism is fundamentally, oddly enough, individualistic. It's this statement that you by yourself can understand something that is bigger than you and outside of you. If you understand the whole thing, or even most of the thing, it's not outside of you. And the minute you come to an understanding of it, we'll say inside yourself, it's not outside of you. Well, now it's not growing you, but it is atrophying you. Right. And that's the problem. Like that none of this is that hard at the end of the day. And that's what video games do. They give you the impression that you can understand a world or 10 worlds even. Well, if you can understand 10 worlds, surely you can understand the world. And if skills exact and you have like, let's say 5 skills from each of your 10 worlds, and you must have enough skills to go into the real world, right? And then of course you can't, and you're weak, and you cry the minute someone criticizes your shitty work because you suck. How doesn't that suck? I have a video on my personal channel, which is just my name, by the way, on YouTube. And I think it's the most popular video I have on there. But it's basically on the Linux Rust kernel thing, it's technical stuff. But at one point, and somebody quoted this in one of the comments, I say, it must suck to suck. Yes, it must. But also, you don't get any better if someone isn't telling you you suck. You know? And look, the problem is that we psyop ourselves because almost everybody can recognize when they make a mistake on their own. But you're not recognizing all the mistakes you make. You're only recognizing a mistake that you made. And you're not seeing the patterns in the mistakes that you make, almost certainly. You need other people for that. Right? As my friend Pastor Vanderclay says, we outsource our sanity. Right. We're outsourcing your sanity to a distributed cognition and making yourself part of that distributed cognition. I can use the fancy Vervaeke words better than anyone can, technically. We did 3.5 years on the Vervaeke server, my friends. 3.5 years. We know Vervaeke pretty well here. Ixnot. In order to understand the whole world, you need to be bigger than the world, right? And if you try to be bigger than the world, you become parasitic. Right, because you can't. And so you NPC most of the world or squish it down to, oh, well, these are cults, and oh, that's just economics, and oh, that's just politics, and all these other horrible frames. I was ranting about that earlier on the Discord server. Political and economic framing. I'm like, you guys have to stop. You're killing me today. You're killing. I can't do it today. I can't do it. You have to stop. Like, you can't put things in economic terms. It's not a way to understand anything in the world. Sorry. It's just almost all economics is wrong, as Nassim Taleb famously points out in his books. Read all his books. They're excellent. Start with Fooled by Randomness, because that'll really throw you for a loop. Yeah. Are cults on a spectrum? No, you can put anything on a spectrum that you want. I don't know why it matters. Cults are all bad, so who cares which one's worse than the other? Why does putting things on a spectrum solve anything? It actually makes everything worse, but anything can be put on a spectrum. There. Is that helpful? Like, I don't know why this matters. And that's the problem. People love to gather knowledge that doesn't connect to anything else in the world, and they have more knowledge. But not more knowledge is a flood. Technically. Just technically a flood. Is flooding good? You want to be drowning? Is that what you want? You want to drown everybody else? You want to believe you're the one who's going to drown last? Good luck with that. There's people out there that can memorize so much stuff, it would destroy you. It would destroy you. You could get in a little game with them of like this, a little pedantic game about what's this, and that, and they can just clean your clock. Is that what you want? I mean, eventually you're gonna run into somebody like that. It's not gonna be good. You're not gonna come out of it well. It's a bad game. Because spectrums are well, even if they're not, the problem is when we project things, we can project what appear to be nonlinear things, but you can't. And that's the issue. Now, if you don't believe me, you can look at my perspective video that just came out recently, my beautiful animation. I hope that people like the animation. I liked the animation. I thought my animation was absolutely freaking awesome. I thought we did a really good job with it. I know it took a very long time to release the animation, right? Let me see. What's the name of it? The Midwit Meme Psyop. Yeah, that's the name of it. That I thought that came out really well, like really, really well. I really liked it. It sort of teaches you how this flat world works. So it's related to the video game thing. It's not. I do like the perspective. And yeah, I know my first animation is about perspective too. That one's a good one too. Um, Ethan came up with a third one, and now I want to do it. It's like been bothering me ever since. I did it by accident. He argued with me about it too for like an hour. He was like, "No, no, I want to do it this way." I'm like, "But that's wrong." And he's like, "Why is it wrong? It shouldn't be wrong." It's so funny. And then he got it, and he went, "Oh." I'm like, "Yeah, there you go." It takes people a while, but I'll tell you. So Ixnay, Ethan, and Castle all know my work so well that they can articulate it better than I can sometimes. So there you go. And that's the purpose, right? That's the whole purpose is I want other people to be able to articulate these ideas to the people that need to hear them the most so that I don't have to. And by the way, I can't reach everybody, right? And I don't want to try. Like I have no desire even if my channel hadn't been dinged by Google somehow or whatever's going on there. Um, thank you, evil sorcerers. I wouldn't want to do it. Like that's not my goal, right? And that's the problem. Well, you are if you just call random people apostles. That's retarded. I agree. That's very flat world retarded. I don't have any apostles. I don't want any apostles. It's a very special term for a very special thing, and you can't just throw it around thinking you're saying something important or useful or correct because you'd be lying at that point. Don't be a liar. It's not good. It's not a good look. When's the wedding, by the way? Are we all getting invitations, young God? Maybe, maybe not. Who cares? When's the wedding again? Where's my invitation? Hmm? No, obviously not. I was never a rando. Never. Never. I never went through the randos. I'm not a rando. I doubt even Pastor Vanderclay would call me a rando. Why would you invite anybody? In fact, that's a good question. So, yeah, I'm probably gonna have another talk with Paul next month here. So it'll be fun. I'm not gonna get on the quote randos calendar or whatever. So there's actually part of that community was there in the beginning 10,000 years ago. No, it wasn't 10,000 years ago. It feels that way though. Um, yeah, so I never had to like get on a calendar or a lottery thing or anything like that. Uh, you know, last time I was in California, I just went up and visited Paul and had pizza with Paul and Joey. It was rather nice. Adam was there. It was good stuff. So, no, I did not watch the talk today. I am a fan of a couple of those people. I am majorly not a fan of a few of those people. And I don't like this estuary project. And when I tried to give them some nice tech for the estuary project, Van Donk kind of did what he did and pissed everybody off. So that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back for a bunch of us. And so we were like, oh, you don't want to build anything. Fine, we'll leave. We'll go build something if you don't want to. And we did. So there you go. No, no, I don't care about these estuary projects. I don't even think they're a good idea. You know, I've got the skinny on some of these things like Chino. And look, even the Catholic Church looks awesome if you don't talk about any of the bad things that happen. It's a nice trick. But unfortunately, it doesn't mean bad things don't happen. And it doesn't mean worse things won't happen. You know, we hope not, but also that's the issue. Um, you notice the pattern. I don't know what you're referring to. You'll have to be a little bit more clear on that one, young God. I don't know what you think or expect me to notice. If there is a pattern, you can take something that's 6.5, maybe 7 years old, and then ask what the fruits of that are and how those fruits have manifested and whether or not they're greater or lesser than they were in the past, and derive a lot about a group. right? And whether or not that's a good thing, right? Right. All groups are not communities. If you want to build a community, I will suggest this book coming soon to a storefront called marketwisdom.org. Right? It'll show you how to build community, and the accompanying workbook will allow you to actually do that. And then you won't need an estuary protocol or an ElseNet estuary leaders network. I thought it was a leaderless group. I don't know. The next time I see Paul, I might ask him about that. Also, well-known in psychology, leaderless groups tend to get run by psychopaths. Weird, I know. This must be a coincidence. Something about power vacuums or vacuums in general. I was thinking about vacuums the other day. I was like, yeah, if you don't understand that there are certain things that aren't optional or are inevitable or whatever in the world that you kind of can't get around, then you probably think there things are manifesting that are not manifesting. They were there the whole time. They just changed their implementation. So when people talk about something like, oh, it's, something had to come in and fill the power vacuum, that's usually what they're referring to. They're referring to something that had nothing to do with the word power or any sort of reasonable definition thereof. It had to do with something that was there, right? Some stuff that was being done that has to be done, right? That's no longer being done. And then somebody else comes in and does it, we'll say differently or more visibly or less visibly. And that's whoa, something came in and filled the power vacuum. It's like, did you destroy something and it came right back? Is that what you're saying? Because that's what you're saying, whether you kind of realize it or not. And I've been pondering a video on that. I should probably do 2 more recordings. But I do have a short video on maturity coming out tomorrow, and then I'll have a 30-minute video or so coming out on Monday or Tuesday while I am luxuriating on the water. But I will need at least 1 or 2 more videos recorded so that when I get back, I will have something to release the week after. But we'll see how that goes. I have a number of videos I want to do, but I can't always do the videos I want to do. So I'm always struggling with that. Uh, do I have the words? Can I frame it correctly? I had one other animation I was trying to wrangle the AI into doing, but it turns out the AIs have no coherence. So it's going to be very hard, I think, to get the AIs to do this other video. If I had the money, I'd hire an animator. I know an animator too who's like looking for commissions. I'm like, shoot, give me a few more months to get some cash flow going, and then we will hire you to do a bunch of animations because I need about 3. I think I could do 3 today that I could describe, maybe 4. Unfortunately, I can't draw, so I can't do animations, which is rather unfortunate because I would do animations all the time like Homath does. Unfortunately, his points are usually slightly incorrect and poorly framed, but he's getting better, I guess. So that's like something. I mean, slow improvement is better than no improvement, as it were. But it's an issue when what you're talking about is more materialistic and more procedure based because you're stuck in a video game reality like Homath clearly is, and you're stuck just explaining things that shouldn't need explaining. Uh, like explaining the say relationship between a man and a woman is a little ridiculous if you ask me. First of all, relationships are unique. They have qualities that manifest as a result of their interaction or the interaction of the things involved in the relationship. And that's part of the problem, I think, is that we've lost an appreciation for manifestation and the idea of knowledge as the result of action. So what ends up happening there is that we flatten the world. We flatten it to propositions. And then we complain about the propositional tyranny, rightly so. Um, but there was no reason to fall for that. And it's not universal. A lot of people aren't in the universal in the propositional tyranny. Um, I think that because of video games, we are trying to propositionalize everything. It's not the only reason. It may not be the primary reason, right? But video games come from comic books. At least we'll say modern uh, multi-user role-playing games come from comic books. And from this sort of, what do I want to call it? Engagement with the uh, noticing of the flat myth of World War II. That's where you get the sort of refinement of Superman. Um, Jonathan Peugeot, I think it was him, wrote an article about this Superman, and it's before World War II, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not before the Great War, and because there's no World War II, um, that's that's your problem. If you if you try to understand that, if you try to fit the world into a narrative that includes World War II, you're just going to end up so misunderstanding a bunch of things. Um, and the world really does begin there for some piece, but it shouldn't. And the fact that it begins there is a bug, not a feature. And that's the problem. When we try to understand things by flattening them out, by compressing them down and say, oh, the bad guy is Cobra and the good guy um, is not Cobra, right? Forces against Cobra. We really screw up. We really screw up because then it makes it okay to not engage in the world and engage in comic books instead. Uh, I have a friend, although he's not a quote good friend of mine. Um, he works in a comic book store. Still, only job he ever held. Has a bunch of comic books. Can't keep a house. I don't know if he's homeless now or what he's doing, but it's not good. In your 50s, you can't hold on to a house because you work at a comic book store and you're not like the manager or anything, not making enough money, trying to live in a highly expensive state with a luxurious, condo that you don't need and could have rented part of, but didn't. Um, Stuck in that milieu of the comic book world. Um, and there's a flat representation of a mythos that itself is flat. And I sort of went over that in the World War II thing. Again, I've got another one of those coming out. So we'll see how well that one goes. I go more into that there. But yeah, we'll see. Vantica, you're welcome, sir. Good to see you. Come back again. I think that this flattening of writing, this flattening of storytelling, this flattening of art, the actual cheapening of these things, making them more accessible to more people, causes a flood. If you want to see how floods work, you can check out my academia video, where I talk about that in academia. I think that might be the easiest way to see it right now, at least if you're not sort of caught up in it. I don't think Jordan Peterson would recognize it or John Vervaeke, but maybe they would. But people who weren't caught up in it, you may have gone to college, but that doesn't mean you were caught up in it, will probably recognize the flood a lot easier. That flood also happened to art and to storytelling. The pulp mags, as much as I like the pulp mags in some cases and love H.P. Lovecraft, not a good thing for society. Dime novels, not great. Not great. Right. All of this comes out of the push from the Protestant Reformation, unfortunately. This is where it came from. And it's a problem. Elite overproduction, there's no such thing by definition, is inevitable in a literate society. Literacy isn't what you think it is. See my video. It was inevitable. It will always be inevitable. That doesn't make any sense. And that self-reference doublespeak, which you are very good at, also good sign that you're not saying anything. I think this is the loop that people get into when they try to understand the world. If there's an elite, you will never understand them. Any understanding you think you have of them will always be flat because you're looking up at something, you're only seeing the bottom of it. It's that simple. This is the animation that Ethan sort of led me to. And that's the problem. There is no doctor that can help you. What you need to do is grow up. The maturity videos might help. Second one will be out tomorrow. I don't think so in your case. I think you don't want to change, but it doesn't change the fact ultimately that the world needs you. Be better. It doesn't change that. That's still actually technically true. But you have to be ready, willing, and able, right? And that's something you have to cultivate in yourself, by yourself, for yourself, and then get others to help with. But I don't see any sign from you that that's something that you're ready, willing, and able to do. So I don't think it's relevant. That may change, and I hope it does. But if it doesn't, that's fine too. Helping people is something that you do and try to do. And if it doesn't work, you kind of move on and help as many people as you can and not worry about the ones you can't, because there's always more that you can't help. And that's called the way life is or something. I'm not too, troubled by it. It just is what it is. Most of the things people do in their lives don't work out. So a lot of people go after that, and other people, right? They go, "Well, you didn't help this person." It's like, well, but I wasn't going to help everybody. Who cares? Right? It's like the most banal, boring, uninteresting, obvious sort of claim that someone can make. And some people specialize in this because they got nothing else. CC Mool. What if what's good for me is bad for someone else? Well, that's always true. And that's true for everybody. So what? Good, better, similar enough to conflate. I mean, that's always the problem of life, is that we're imperfect people living in an imperfect world. You could call it a fallen world, I guess, if you were a crazy person. Like, what do you want me to do about it? Like, that's definitely observably true. It's true about everything and for every person. I mean, is that like, other than an obvious statement of something you can observe in the world? What is the purpose of? I mean, is there a real question in there? It's this is sort of like, you probably never heard me talk about marijuana. So marijuana is an interesting drug, right? The problem with marijuana is that 80% of the people or so that smoke it, and these are real numbers. You can look up the numbers. It isn't that hard. Like, I didn't gin them up out of a video game reality. That they're actually just, you can just like Google them. Although Googling takes some care, because you got to read through these stupid papers because everybody lies about what's in them. But if you actually read the research, and you can, because it's available to be read, you find out 80% of the people just become stoners. And so it's bad for them. Now, for people who have anxiety and don't have a better way to treat it, although maybe I got to find my anxiety coursework, because I did most of it. It's somewhere. It's in one of these AIs. If you're using marijuana to treat anxiety, it's very good for you. And if you're a disciplined person already and you use it like twice a month, I mean, you're not going to become a stoner. It's fine. But that's 10% of the people, not 20. It's 10. 10% of the people descend into worse drugs. 80% of the people just become stoners. And 10% of the people get better from an anxiety condition. Should we legalize marijuana for 10% of the population? Boy, that's elitism, isn't it? No, we shouldn't legalize it. Like, that's ridiculous. Why would you harm 80% of the population to benefit 10% of the population? Well, sorry. Why would you harm 90% of the population, 10% of them really bad, to benefit 10% of the population? That makes no sense. Why would you do that? Like, there's no way that that's good. Now the question, which is interesting, CC, is, oh, well, some things that are good for me are bad for other people and vice versa. What do we do about that? Yeah, well, because that's a we problem, not a me problem or a you problem. That's a we problem all of a sudden. That's a very, very different type of problem. I actually have a video on that somewhere. It's very old. It's all the way back. It's probably 4 years old at this point. Because my channel is about 4 years old. Amazingly enough, I still can't believe that, but apparently it's true. So what ends up happening is, well, now you have to have a discussion about things that are bigger than you. And, in certain circles, things that are bigger than you are called egregores or Ed Gregor, if you prefer, which of course I do because I love Ed Gregor. Actually, I don't use them enough, so I feel bad there. Hopefully Ed's getting enough exposure today. Why you would use silly occult language, other than you're a demon worshiper, I don't know, but they are using that language without realizing the irony of using actual occult terminology. Just cracks me up. I'm like, you guys have Google, right? Like you could, no Google. I don't. Lazy, is that the? I don't. Anyway, or like, are you okay? Like writing to Hermes, Hermeticism. Hermeticism is a form of occultism. Like it's the birth of occult. Are you sure you want to be an occultist? Because that's what you're doing. The problems that are we problems cannot necessarily be solved by one person. And in the cases that they can be, those are extraordinary people. They're once in a generation or less types of people. And that's just a technical, statistical, measurable thing, right? They're not top 1%, they're the top 0.1%. That's not you. So don't worry about that, right? It's not anybody you know statistically. So it's fine. And it might not be anybody that's alive when you're alive, even. That's the more important part, right? So the people that can sort of understand those things are extraordinarily rare. Don't worry about it. What do you do about those things? Well, it just turns out, I don't know who knows this and who doesn't, because I've really got questions about how people think about the world. You were born into a pre-existing reality that mostly had those problems solved. Now, were they solved well? Not all of them, but some of them. Would you understand if they were solved well or poorly? Well, I don't know how you as a single person would do that, because you only have your personal private perspective. And what's good for somebody else might be bad for you. But if it's good for 80% of the population and bad for you, it's still good on average. So you wouldn't know that. You would just feel the bad part. That sucks. You can look at the Midwit Meme PsyOp video for more understanding of how this works. Right. Your personal private experience is not an indicator of the outside world. I'm sorry. Maybe the only information you have about the outside world, but that's a very different statement. And so what ends up happening is, oh, this certainly true thing has implications. What do we do about that? Well, a lot of it's just conform to the outside world because hierarchy. And I have a video on hierarchy. I highly suggest you watch the hierarchy video. It's quite good, if I do say so myself. And so once you sort of understand that there were pre-existing ways of dealing with these things, a lot of things simplify. So right now, the new talk, again, from guys like Vervaeke, but not only Vervaeke, also, look, those little cults. I mean, I hate to laugh about it because it's not that funny. On the other hand, I did warn them for years, told them how this is all going to play out, and now we're here, and I'm like, could we not be here? Um, when you try to develop your own religion, which is the new talk in all the circles, like Verviki's back on that. Um, that is the result of thinking that there is a problem that hasn't already been solved, as opposed to understanding that this problem has been solved, but you don't like the costs, right? Like, after all of this, generally wonderful technology. We have the internet, we have electricity, we have like these high-speed computers. By the way, you don't need high-speed computers to have the internet, right? You do need electricity though. And all this wonderful software to do streaming from a browser, all this ridiculous stuff was the product of people that had the things that you're trying to solve already. So the question is, why are you trying to solve this if it's already solved? Oh, because you didn't like the answer that you got. And fair enough. Who among us does? Well, it just turns out a lot of them do. They just cooperate and you don't, and then you blame them to be because they're in a conspiracy against you. But that didn't happen, so that's good to know. You don't have to see the world as adversarial. But there's no reason to do that. CC Mool. I feel as if we are two rocks tumbling down different slopes. Probably. So what? That's every person. Like, I don't. Your framing is very strange. Do you not see the world? Different people have different struggles. Different struggles is different slopes and tumbling down them, I guess. I don't like, if you don't have kids, you don't have those struggles. Does that make you different? And how different are you? And does it matter? I know people with kids. I talk to them all the time. I talk to their kids, in fact. You're presenting these things like they're problems or obstacles or interesting. And I'm kind of like, it's Tuesday and day ending in Y, sun rose in the east, sets in the west. I'm just not sure why this is a thing. Ixnon, in the video game reality, we want to solve problems without any trade-offs. Very true. Very true. Right, because we don't realize, because we're postmoderns, that we've already agreed to the framing. We've already agreed to the framing. And so if you've already agreed to use up your time, energy, and attention for 22 hours to solve the game at any cost, because some people do that, myself included, in a past life when I was very young, it seems like there's no trade-offs. But everything has a trade-off. If you don't see a trade-off, that just means you've made one that you didn't understand you had agreed to. That's all it means. It doesn't mean anything else, and it can't mean anything else. It's not going to ever mean anything else. So that's good to know. Right? That's good to know. So that's the problem. That's the problem, is people don't understand this agreement that they've made with certain parts of the world. And they prefer it because they think they've made a choice. But the nature of the choice they've made is actually something that they actually don't understand. They don't get the choices that they're making, but they feel like they've made a choice, so they feel good. And video games very much give you that sensation. Like, oh, I get to choose the type of entertainment I'm engaged in and how engaging it is. It's like, really? I don't know about that. I mean, it seems that way, but actually it's somebody else is pulling the strings. It's somebody else that made the world and the rules and the physics engine and the art. You didn't do that. Right? And you can kind of buy your way in or barter your way in by trading your time, energy, and attention to somebody else who's going to pay you, and then you can use that to pay your bills, sure, whatever. And you can think of it that way if you want. I mean, again, economics is a bad frame, but You can certainly break things down in that frame, but the fact that you can break anything down in a frame shows the frame's wrong. Frames should have a limits. This is one of the great things that Jordan Peterson talks about all the time. And I don't think he realizes quite what he's saying, right? But science has limitations. What are they? Yeah, what are they indeed? Well, you can't derive an ought from an is, and that's a famous sort of quote philosophical, if there is any philosophy past Aristotle, problem. Um, but it's understood. Like we don't need to get into it, right? Like the boundaries of that problem, and because it turns out not to be a problem, it just you can't do that. The limitations, constraint imposed by reality, um, is a feature, not a bug. And so when you try to fix that as though it's a problem, then it's a problem, right? Then you've created a problem where none existed before. And that is very much what science has run into is it's trying to self justify. Well, that's a self reference. Notice the word self. And that won't work because it's invalid. Self reference is invalid in all cases. I think people get confused. They look at a world because of video game reality, think they know the world, how the world should work. It doesn't work that way. They have to find a thing to blame so that they can then fix it. And it's like, yeah, but what if that's just the way the world is? That's the interesting part. What if that's just the way the world is? And your engagement has to be within that constraint. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about power vacuum. Reason why people see like power vacuums is because they're just not accepting the way the world is. So you can say like, oh, we got rid of the drug addicts from this one area of the city and they moved to another area of the city. Yeah, because you weren't getting rid of the drug addicts. You can move drug addicts, but you can't eradicate them. I mean, unless you like kill them all or something, I suppose. But that is not a sustainable solution because they self generate, it seems. Right. Right. So it's not as though everything is a problem to be solved as the video game reality would have you believe, because everything isn't a problem, because everything doesn't have a solution. Some things just are. And that is, or the acceptance of that is what people like Praviki are struggling with. It is what Peterson to some extent is struggling with. They don't like the constraints. They don't understand the constraints that they're under. And the fact that there are constraints from the past, or one way to say that might be sins of the father. Um, that's not a thing to be eradicated. It might be something to be accepted in some fashion and maybe, I don't know, confessed to existing, repented of by somebody in some fashion, and perhaps have some penance done to mediate or mitigate the problem. But since that problem will recur, that is like an ongoing process through time. Uh, Hence, the requirement, we'll say, of tradition and liturgy. See how easy that is to understand? I don't really know why people aren't explaining it in that way. And then once you have those things, they are reasonable replacements, we'll say, for video games. People need structure. People need things to mimic. If it's a video game, you you're gonna entropy. You're gonna have a bad life. Things are gonna go downhill pretty significantly for you. We see that in the data. It's kind of everywhere. Probably what's causing a lot of the things that we call autism is just too much engagement in video games. Certainly, anybody who has, we'll say, a pre-existing material caused autism is only going to get more autistic engaging in video games. Sorry. Does that mean no video games? Maybe for some of them. I don't know. Uh, Certainly can't hurt to have no video games. There are entire generations, like almost everybody who's ever lived, who never had access to video games. And they seem to have built the world that enables video games, which must be a larger world than the world of video games itself. And so I would say there is no indication whatsoever on the positive side of video games, but all the indications that we have are negative. That does not necessarily mean we need to get rid of video games tomorrow, although, again, I can prove we don't need them. That's pretty easy. But maybe we shouldn't have so many. Maybe people shouldn't be engaged in them. I mean, in China, they actually do limit video game time. I wonder why they do that for one of the large, well, that is the largest country, I believe, by population, and landmass, perhaps. Um, on the planet, they actually kind of, oh, these are bad. Let's do something about it. Japan, on the other hand, has very little limitation in what you can engage in, and they also have population collapse and a suicide problem. They are sort of experiencing full force the results of the meaning crisis. You can see that rather clearly in 1998's Ghost in the Shell. That is pretty good. Pretty good. But you see, if you take Ghost in the Shell in the timeline and you project it out, and you understand Ghost in the Shell as like one of these fairly accurate meaning crisis movies, you can see that Japan just fell into that, right? It falls right into that slot of meaning crisis and hits it rather nicely. And that's the problem. Is that we haven't recognized the model for meaning crisis yet. We haven't recognized what causes the meaning crisis was the intimacy crisis, right? Where we don't understand that relationships have qualities, not quantities, and not qualia, whatever that's supposed to mean. These freaking sciencey people and their goofy ontologies, trying to ontologize experience itself, which is impossible. And unnecessary. Like, you don't need a description of what it's like to be in love. You can just be in love. People have been doing it for years without language. It's not that hard, actually. It will sort of happen on its own. There's a lot of things like that where, yeah, you don't need to describe these things. You don't need an explanation for these things. You can just engage. Right? I how would you describe the Mark of Wisdom Discord server? I wouldn't. Why don't you log in and check it out for yourself and see what goes on there? And then you'll know. And you won't need to rely on my squish down flat world propositions about all of the numerous things that go on the server, including developing the board game. We shamelessly stole the artist's workplace idea that Sally had, since Sally's part of our little group, and put it on Mark of Wisdom, where it actually gets used to great effect. Watching Sally paint, for example, is lovely. I could, describe any number of things, like going through the monologue today on the Discord server, which I rather enjoy, and getting a bunch of feedback and stealing a bunch of words from Sally, who is in rare form tonight. But until you're there, you really don't get the quality of what's happening. And so it's easy to say, oh, this is just like this other Discord, but it's not. It's not like any of those other Discord servers. And the fruits are how you know. We have fruits. They're printed, in fact. We have a meeting on Monday, too, to figure out how to do the release. We have fruits in the form of a web-based version of our board game that we're playing with so that we can tune the game mechanics. We have fruits in these live streams and the content on the channel in general. And Ixnon, if only I see Tom Lehrer is a prophet. I feel that if someone can't communicate, the least they can do is shut up about it. Indeed, Tom Lehrer is a genius. So is PJ O'Rourke. He's another freaking spitfire. These guys. The problem is that when you're in the video game reality, you squish the fruits down and make them all equal. And then one estuary is much like another. And everything becomes related to estuary because that's the center of your world, because that's the game you think you're playing. But what if, in fact, there were a world with no estuary and something quite a bit better for you? How would you know? How would you wouldn't know? Right? What if the experiences on the Awakening from the Meaning Crisis Discord server informed a book club like the wonderful, do I have a copy? I do. Like the wonderful book club that Manuel ran on this lovely book, The Language of Creation. And that enhanced that experience for all involved to a degree that was rather unexpected. Young God, why don't you ask him? He follows some of it. Like PBK reads things that I recommend and stuff. Like, and he said this on his streams. Like, he talks about, oh yeah, I finally got around to reading American Nations. What a great book. I told you to read it a year ago. That's fine. I'm not mad. Like, you don't have to do what I say. I'm not interested in running the world. I have other things that need doing, and I'm not in a position anyway. A few years ago, maybe I was, but I'm not anymore. I wouldn't have run BOM. Joey ran BOM. It was great when he ran it too. He's not there anymore. It's now dead. Could be a coincidence. I don't know. Sally Joe. The worst is people prioritizing immediate emotional comfort over actual care. Yeah, Sally, I left that out for a reason. I heard it the first 6 times you said it. Video games are the worst because they do, in fact, prioritize immediate comfort over actual care. And then you don't know what care is anymore. And then if someone gives you something, you're actually scared by it. And then that makes the problem worse. Right? It's a so-called virtuous cycle in the wrong direction. And when we're stuck in the flat world, we get stuck in this binary thing where everything is this or that. And it's like, but nothing in the world is like that at all. As near as I can find, and I've challenged people to like find me something that's an actual binary, and they've just been unable to do so. And they're pretty smart people, so they're smarter than I am. So I don't know. I'm going to stick with it until I get evidence to the contrary. You can place anything in a binary. 3-year-olds do that all the time. This is an interesting trick at some level. But are there things that are actual binaries in the world? Because I've got question. Oh, well, this time I was referring to the effects of the afflicted, not really a corner. Yes. Well, that's the problem. They are the children of the video game reality. That pattern plays out all over the place. The pattern of immediate comfort over actual long-term care. If I care about you, I'm going to tell you you're wrong or your painting sucks. Because I want you to be better. I want you to get better. I want you to improve. And without that feedback, you can't do it. That's the problem. That's the problem. Young God, so playing a board game on a computer doesn't count as playing a video game. It might. I just don't care if it does or not because I'm not going to sell a board game that's playable on a computer. Why would you? Because that is my question. And I might be convinced otherwise, but I doubt it. It's possible to construct because I lived this, right? A world where you get people offline. Like that's not actually a wild idea. It happens all the time. Uh, it is theoretically at least possible to construct such a thing. So in the BBS days, we had a thing. Um, shoot, now I don't remember what it was called, but it was once a month on a Sunday. We'd all gather at the mall because malls were big back in the 80s. And so we did gather at the mall. Um, and that was wonderful. And it happened, I don't know, was it 20 years after that? Probably 20 years later, 18 years later. I ran into somebody in a work environment that I had met at that event. Of course, I knew him from the BBS, which I would not have known because we all used aliases back then, including myself, of course, at work. And we're still friends. Like we're good buddies. And it was interesting to talk about and reminisce about our time on the BBS. And I got him a rather nice job. His wife loves me because I just changed their lives, basically by telling him, "You're underpaid, and that's moronic. You're a very talented and skilled technical person. Come work in this division." And I told my boss, basically, "You must hire him," and he did. And that worked. I was a consultant too, so consultants get away with a lot more. Uh, and changed his life because he stayed there for a while, and then I got offered a job at, of all things, a reinsurance company. It was a very tempting job, and they offered me a hail of a lot of money. And I turned it down to do a contract instead because that was a full-time job. And I gave the job to him. And they paid him slightly less money, although not much less. So he was making a hail of a lot of money. It was a hell of a good job. And he stayed there for 2 or 3 years, whatever, until they got bought out or whatever. He had quite a good time, but they lived the life. He learned to pilot a plane, took me up once in the plane, in fact, right? So these are fruits of growing up online and learning to socialize from being online. But the problem that I have is that world is long gone. The internet is here. The internet was not that, I mean, not that it didn't exist, as in nobody was on it except academics in school because you really couldn't get an account on the internet or there were no internet services back then. Uh, you really needed to be part of a university. That filter was important, by the way. We did away with it. That might be a hint. Um, or the military, right? Because the military invented the internet for their own purposes. So the fact of the matter is, you can, in fact, um, sort of understand and get people from online to offline. That can be done. I am skeptical about what steps would be required, how many, whether or not you have enough control to make it happen online. We had a great deal of success on the Awakening from the Meaning Crisis Discord server in a certain way. And like actually statistically, phenomenal success. Phenomenal. 100% for one of the practices, the one that we developed actually. And so obviously I support practices. It's getting people online to do practices is virtually impossible. We had a nice filter because people were interested in Vervaeke's work. They were there for meditation. We were able to parlay that into other things. It didn't work for all the people in the meditation, obviously, but all the people that eventually engaged in the extended practices, I guess is what I'll call them, benefited. Not all the people stayed in those practices, but of the people that stayed in those practices and went to our advanced practice, they all ended up in a better place. They all ended up going to church. So I don't know how that happened. I don't have a particular explanation. I wish we were doing that practice more. We call it exploring narrative meaning for various good reasons. And we actually haven't done that in quite some time for various good reasons. It's not the sort of thing you could jump into anyway. Like, you shouldn't just like show up to an explore narrative meaning event and try to engage. That would not help. So the interesting thing is that while I firmly believe and am a billion% sure that this can be done, I am not sure that it's easy enough or practical enough to be implemented. And so I am skeptical about whether or not people should even implement such a thing. Uh, on the other hand, I think with the right group of people, you could develop programs. You would need multiple of them because the internet is huge. You have no idea how many internet communities there are. No one actually knows. There's just too many. To get people out of, we'll say, the worst of these little communities, right? I saw a post recently by Rachel Wilson. Uh, Interesting group, the Crucible group. Andrew Wilson is her husband. He's an interesting guy. And she was posting about some research she had done on something called Bambi sleeps, which is a type of hypno engagement. And it is pretty horrific. I don't recommend you look into it. But suffice it to say that these little porn corners of the internet, or porn adjacent corners of the internet, are not great. Not great. Ixnon, online is a flood now. Exactly. So getting people from online to offline requires getting people online to buy into some limitation. Exactly. It also gets them, you have to convince them to buy into some structure. That's why Jocko Willink has more success than you would think. Or even Peter Attia or any of those guys, right? It's easier to take somebody from a flat online world to a flat offline world in some ways, or at least certain types of people. It's also easy to blow those people out. So like we've missing a dear friend, although maybe he'll be back. You never know with these people. Um, some people get involved in the Jocko Willing thing or the bodybuilding thing or the martial arts thing or the MMA thing or the book club thing or whatever, right? And that's the problem, is that you don't know what's capturing those people and how to capture them reliably. Sally Joe, things that are bigger than you don't mean you have to fight them. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I did leave that out of my monologue. Is that video games give the idea that everything bigger than you is something to be fought. Of course, that leads to more rebellion, and we don't need more rebellion. The system that we have, that we were born into, is wonderful. And so maybe we should treat it with care and revivify it rather than constantly trying to destroy it or aspects of it. It was working great in the Middle Ages. It worked long after the Middle Ages to build us this wonderful electrified internet world that has video games. Perhaps, however, the turn towards video games, or at least we'll say non 8-bit video games, was an error that can be corrected by not allowing it to exist anymore, in the same way I would say of porn or legalization of marijuana or any number of things that are bad on average for the average person in the population, even if they are not bad for everyone. I am not looking for a solution for everyone. I think that's half-witted at best, or maybe nit-witted at best. I'm looking for a solution for the people in the most trouble that I think can be reached. So, not drug addicts. Actually tried that too. That was a huge mistake on my part. I knew better at the time, and yet Sometimes we get sucked into things because we are fallible creatures who are flawed. It's almost as if we're fallen or something. But that would be silly language to use, so I try to avoid it. Sally Joe M. Cooper. When you're on a ship that has a steering issue, sinking it rarely improves your circumstances. That is an excellent metaphor. What did you eat something today, Sally? Are you in the middle of a fast? What's going on with you? You have been the most articulate ever. I've never seen you this articulate for this long, ever. This is amazing. Amazing. I only say it that way because I'm copying Sally, by the way. She says, amazing. Really funny. At least to me. I think it's hysterical. Oh yeah, I went to Micro Center and I convinced someone to buy me a duster, computer duster, which is awesome. I have to use it on my computer, which gets dusty for some reason quite often. I don't know why. And especially since we're going to be traveling starting on Monday, 5.5 hours out to where we're going. And we're probably going to visit the Outer Banks and stuff too. So at least for the day, that will be fun. Um, yeah, I don't know. Sally Joe, I did 2 watercolors yesterday and had poor sleep. Did you though? Did you have poor sleep? I've been doing lovely watercolors for the workbook, which is gonna be awesome. I cannot wait for everybody to see the workbook. We've just seen little pieces of it, and Cass is doing such a good job. It's not real to me. I'm like, "How did this happen?" This workbook has existed for a very long time in text only form, and it kinda like, "Well, whatever, it's workbook." Got little check marks and spaces to write things in, and it's nice enough, but with the addition of some aphorisms and some artwork and some clever formatting, um, I don't know. Like, I don't even know how to describe because you can't really how awesome it is. And we just have pieces. We don't have the whole thing. So I'm super excited about that. In fact, there is my editor now. Why is he pinging me? Workbook's done. Emailed you. Okay, apparently the workbook is done. Unfortunately, my editor doesn't realize that my email is off because I am focused on y'all, except when people interrupt me on Discord, which does happen occasionally, like it just did. And I have to keep Discord open for various good reasons while I stream, but my email's actually shut down. And a bunch of other things that might bother me are actually shut off. And maybe I don't need Discord anymore, but I'm so used to having it open when I stream that I have not shut it down. Ixnon, if it's amazing, is it remarkable? It might not be remarkable and amazing, or vice versa, but it also might be both. Um, thank you for that, Ixnon. So, look, does anybody want to jump in, or anybody have anything in the live comments they want to object on video games so that I can show them that they're wrong about everything they believe in the world? Or am I going to end up having to shut this down? Not even, just shy of 3 hours. Oh, that's still a respectable time for me to go by myself. Did I mention I'm on, like, lots of drugs? Aha, I see what the problem is. So if I put my bottle down on my desk too hard, there's too much vibration. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought vibration would move that camera. I need to get another camera. This camera is 5 or 6 years old. Maybe it's 5 years old. And I love this camera, but also I need a much better camera to do streaming. Why doesn't everybody buy me a coffee so I can afford a new camera? Because I actually might do that if I get. I really need to fix my YouTube monetization. We'll have to find out. If you know anybody at YouTube, have them look at my channel for real and fix whatever's dinging it, because that's happening. And they don't want to admit it. Although they partially admitted it to me, which I find amusing, by the way. I find that very amusing, in fact. I think it's hysterical. Sally Joe, video games are garbage. Sally, your bias and We know your opinion. Sally Joe's life is being destroyed by video games. And those that defend them are cowards. Total victory. Wow. Okay, Sally. I know you've seen many a life destroyed by video games, but just calm down. Just calm down. No one? No one? Nothing? Nothing? All right, I'm going to eat this Fin Carrere chocolate from Little then, as soon as I get off the stream. I may also enjoy some wafer cookies because somebody bought way too much candy. And then I, of course, when we went to get our Sam's Club membership, convinced somebody to buy ice cream with chocolate all over it too. So yeah, it's just whatever. Sally finds it amusing that no one rides to their defense. You cannot defend video games, certainly not against that onslaught. It means they know. Well, they're pondering, and they know better than to come up against a skilled rhetorician such as myself. They do, the Crucible Discord server does debate club, and I'm always tempted to go in there, and I never remember when it is. But I have to go in and visit those guys. I miss those guys. I've talked to them before. They're good guys. I haven't talked to Andrew yet. We tried to talk to Andrew, but Sally Joe, total garbage, hell vortex. Geez, Sally, that's more porn, but I understand your point. All right, guys, look, I'm not even going to make it to 3 hours, and no one wants to join me and take the pressure off. So, fair enough. Reconsider video games. There's problems there. I've outlined most of them. Consider this stuff carefully. I'm not saying don't ever video game again. I still have video games. I'm probably going to bring those racing wheels out. Get my PS2 going, hook it up to the TV, and make Sarah play with me, which she will. Castle, so glad the workbook's done. I had no idea you were talking about it when I finished it. It sent that message. That's hysterical. Time to play some video games. So, Castle, I know where you live. I know where you live, sir. I know where you live. Be careful. Be careful. Don't make Sally Joe upset. Enjoy your snacks. Thank you, Sally. Listen, I hope everybody has a great time. I know I'm going to have a great week on semi-vacation, kind of, visiting my friend over on the water. It's going to be a wonderful time. I don't know what next week's topic is going to be. Comment if you want a particular topic. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I won't. Or come on the Market Wisdom Discord server where we talk about such things, and sometimes on Friday morning decide what the topic's going to be and then scramble all day to make sure we have enough material. Which really wasn't a problem this time. It was more cutting out material, but whatever. That's a different story. Join us there if you want to get stuff done and help with things like board games, which we are working on diligently. And thank you, Ixnon. We'll have to go over that document together or something at some point, dude, and see what you're talking about that isn't there. Because I remember the document differently. So fair enough. Propositions are flat, and we all have interpretations. It kind of sucks. Have a wonderful week, everybody. And look, remember one thing or we'll say, if you remember only one thing, and you have only one takeaway at all from my entire video, and fair enough, it is this: the world needs you. Be better. Be better. The world needs you. It's all in the inflection. Have a lovely week. See you next Friday. Tell your friends.